Navigating Change, the podcast from Tybal Inc. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here with Howard Tybal.
Hey, Pete, I love that. I love your enthusiasm today.
I'm incredibly enthusiastic this week.
I know, because you know what? Can I guess what you're going to say?
Do it.
I have one of my people here.
Yeah. I do.
Right?
This is a legacy people right here. Right. We're going to be talking about we're going to be talking about a bit of a non-traditional approach to education this week. I'm very excited. Note before we dig in, head over to tybalinc.com, learn more about the show, subscribe for free, blue button right there on the website. We will keep you updated. If you give us your email address, we'll keep you updated as we post new shows. Okay, Burck Smith is the CEO and founder of StraighterLine, an education company that works to solve a major hurdle among many hurdles for many students: cost. They do this by offering accredited courses online for a monthly fee with credits that are guaranteed to transfer within their network of transfer colleges.
Back in 2012, Andrew Rosen was speaking at a conference, and I was moderating a conversation. He just had a book come out, and it was with the business officers of the Eastern Association. So all the Eastern Association CFOs, COOs, whatever you want to designate them as. And he was telling the story about what Kaplan's doing. He made a really interesting statement. He said, listen, you don't have to worry about me. You have to worry about or think about all the other independent, creative entrepreneurial businesses that are going to start to pop up to address some of the challenges facing higher education that the traditional model is not addressing. And I can tell you that the audience was very interested in this. I think that in some sense, if I was to be really candid, many of them were looking for reasons to dismiss what he was doing, and others were really trying to understand it to see what they do about it. So, knowing that our audience, in probably 90% of them, come from the more quote-unquote traditional world, I'd love you to start off by just telling the story about why they should care about this.
Sure. Well, first, thank you for having me and the opportunity to speak. I think maybe the best way is to talk quickly about what we do to set context, and then to talk about why we do it, how we work with colleges, and then what the implications are going forward. And if in that process, Pete or Howard, you all want to interrupt and ask questions, feel free. I certainly don't want to be on my soapbox. But what StraighterLine does is we offer online general education courses, just general education. We have about 60 of them. We have no aspirations to offer degrees, just these courses. We're not a college, so we're not actually accredited. However, we have formal articulation agreements with now about 100 colleges. We can guarantee credit transfer from us to them. So students enroll with us. They do not use financial aid. They pay out of pocket. They start with a free trial. Then if they like the experience, then they pay on a subscription basis, $99 per month. And then there are per course fees of about $49 each.
I am going to interrupt, Eric, because I think that there's something really interesting about what you just said. So you said you already have a whole series of colleges where you have articulation agreements where they take your courses and they will accept those courses as part of a degree granting program. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
So when I think about the institutions that you're partnering with, are they also in the nonprofit, sort of more traditional, or are they also operating in, they've got a very sort of robust, or they're trying to build a online kind of environment, and you become in many ways a partner with them in this non-traditional approach? When I say non-traditional, I'm talking about the alternative to the residential campus, the traditional community colleges, the large research institutions, whatever we deem as the traditional institution. Who are those schools who are accepting your courses for their degree granting programs?
So the 100 colleges we currently have, and it really crosses the spectrum. So they're public, private, for-profit, 2-year, 4-year. Really, it doesn't really matter the type. What the defining feature is that most of them, in fact, probably all of them, aspire to serve adult and non-traditional students, which, as we know, is actually the majority of students these days are not traditional. It's not that 18 to 22-year-old going to have a fabulous residential experience. They are going in, swirling in and out of colleges. They're taking some online, some face-to-face. They're bringing credits from multiple sources. That's the population that we serve. Mostly because that's how we've had to build the business to get traction in higher ed, not because these credits don't necessarily fulfill more traditionally aged students. It's just that higher ed has not been, or the dynamics have not been present to build that kind of presence.
And what's fascinating for me about this is this, where many leaders who work in quote unquote the traditional environment recognize that there's a need to take transfers and that there's kids that come back to school after they become adults, maybe they're 10 years out. But the majority of their model is around that transition period out of high school. We forget to realize, as you just said, the majority of individuals who are in the college and its environment are going to be more and more over time these adult and non-traditional students, and that's only going to grow. And this is an area where I can tell you most of the residential campus institutions are not really paying attention to how they're going to serve them. And I think this is where you're filling a gap.
Absolutely. Yep. And the logic is, it's at some level kind of harsh logic, but true, is that one of the big questions we had to answer as a business was, why would colleges work with us? If we are offering accounting 101 courses or psych 101 courses at prices that are 10 times less than what a college is offering themselves. Well, there's two questions. Why are we so cheap? Which is often kind of a veiled reference to there must be a quality problem.
Right.
And then second is, why would they work with us? And the first answer is that, almost all colleges price their online courses the same or higher than face-to-face, which is nuts because the cost of delivery is far, far less.
Can I tell you that I just was in a conversation with a school where that question came up by one of the deans, and the answer from the person developing their online curriculum is, we're charging the same amount for the online programs. But I can tell you from their perspective, this is how they're trying to offset the fact that they can't raise tuition and they can't reduce their workforce. They're dealing with rising healthcare costs. So they're looking at these online programs as an opportunity to offset those gaps. And this is another example of, it's the dilemma you have, which is they're offering them at a price that is comparable to what they would have for the traditional seated classes. However, because they have the brand, the perception is the quality must be high, while you're probably dealing with the fact that people look at your pricing and they're incorrectly concluding the quality is less because you don't have that brand.
Yeah, that's certainly true at the highest level, although that's a short-term problem, and it's already changing. I think most people realize at the core that you can't charge ultimately the same or higher for online as face-to-face. There's just not as much cost embedded in it. And that you're seeing that in sort of general statistics where online enrollments at accredited colleges are flat. Enrollments or, say, learning in non-accredited platforms, whether that's StraighterLine or MOOCs or elsewhere, are exploding. So, people are essentially starting, and where they are increasing in higher ed is at the community college level, and the high-priced online enrollments are the ones that are plummeting. So students are starting to make price-conscious decisions in online education, and that's only going to grow. Again, as more folks like us are out there, as both students take us as well, take our courses, as well as more colleges accept it, and now that the Department of Education is starting to create financial aid or thinking about creating financial aid pathways to providers like us, that not only creates a financing tool but creates external validation for what we're doing. So this idea that colleges can sort of drop their cost of delivery but maintain their profit margins over time is just, I think that's a bad strategy for a college to pursue.
Well, it's a bit of a legacy argument too. I mean, the argument that at least the academic side of the house sits on is, well, the diploma says XYZ University. It doesn't say XYZ University Online, so the diploma is the value.
That's right, PP. You know what? That was the question that was asked, Burck, was when your collection of courses gets represented, behind your diploma, does it show which one of your courses are online versus classroom? And the answer is no. So in some ways, there's, again, another justification that they can charge the same amount, because what they're buying still in the value proposition that most schools are still thinking is this diploma from this institution. Now, believe me, we work with lots of institutions. There are the small liberal arts charging over $50,000 at this point a year, at least sticker price, and they are having to look really critically at this question of cost. While the bigger players, they're trying to figure out how to deal with these transfer issues and trying to bring online in. So,
well, that then becomes the question, then, right, Howard? Is that these institutions are trying to find a way to make each student more profitable as they move to online opportunities, and yet here we have, Burck, you are offering an opportunity for each student to find the value in each student by getting rid of essentially the overhead that these more profitable students at traditional ed are covering, right? I mean, is that your model, or can you talk a little bit more about that?
So so it's kind of three big questions, I guess, that we had to answer. One is about about price, and it's really we're just pricing closer to the cost of delivery, whereas colleges try and price as if they were face-to-face courses. So there's really no difference in our courses. We're just pricing more affordably. But the second is, to your question, why would a college work with us? And on the one hand, they're worried that someone will take our accounting 101 course at for a tenth the price of theirs, and they don't derive the revenue for that course. On the other hand, colleges spend anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 to sometimes even higher $1,000 to attract new students to their college.
Right.
And so the students that come to us need a place to go, and the place to go becomes the colleges that make it easy to transfer their credit. And then colleges are competing with each other for students. So over time, more and more colleges work with us because they all want to be on the same playing field as everyone else who's working with us. So there are some network effects that start to get created once you get a critical mass.
And the idea then is that your students, the students that come out of your program, end up being of greater value to the transferring institution.
Well, there's two things. One is they get a free channel to new students. So, we don't sell leads at all, ever. We do not take any money from colleges, which is not the case for many of the marketing channels the colleges pursue now. So it's absolutely free to work with us. And then second, the students that do go to that one of our partner colleges are more likely to persist to a degree than those that just start fresh. And we have data from Western Governors University, who we work closely with.
Yes.
That proves that. So, and that's also proven by sort of multiple more general studies. So transfer students persist more than non-transfer students. Students that come with prior learning assistance persist more than those that don't. Students that come with StraighterLine credit are going to persist more than those that don't. So basically, students that have proven themselves are more likely to be successful.
So how would you play out the longer term implications of you and other providers being more successful at this relative to the cost structure problem that the traditional colleges have, and in their cases, trying to figure out how to do a better job of attracting students? Is part of your strategy? I saw Sal Khan speak, and it was the same audience. It was the cabinet members who were the finance folks, and the question that was asked of him was, what's your long-term strategy? And his long-term strategy was very explicit about this, was not to be the alternative to traditional education, but to find a way to have more traditional education utilize his programs and services and approach and data analytics to do a better job of serving their students and students of the future. So in terms of your longer-term strategy, is it about creating a different model, or is it about ultimately integrating yours into the existing model?
We're much more the latter. I mean, we work closely with colleges. So on the one hand, you mentioned there is kind of a fear that students migrate to our courses in undermine business models or profit margins of colleges. On the other hand, we have become a very good source of students for many colleges. So we'll have about 20,000 students enroll with us this year and growing rapidly. And on top of that, we now have some colleges that are using us as a referral destination for students that they can't enroll or lose engagement with. So a student that was interested that didn't apply, a student that applied but didn't enroll, a student that enrolled but didn't complete. At some point, the college has lost engagement with that student, and we can be a place where they say, hey, go to StraighterLine, take a few courses, prove yourself, and come back. And so for the student, that's a low cost, low risk to essentially test themselves and see if they're ready to go back without having to commit themselves to debt or the financial obligation of a college. And for the college, it's a way to optimize their marketing stream and kind of get a second crack at these students who they lost engagement with. And for larger implementations and those that colleges that kind of take this on as a serious strategy, we do significant co-branding, co-marketing, and data sharing. We try and optimize that stream of referrals to us and back to the college. So we absolutely see ourselves as part of the degree framework. It's just that online courses ultimately should be much, much more affordable just because of their cost of delivery, which actually solves a lot of problems that we've talked about in higher ed. It solves the cost problem for students, for those who want to take these sorts of courses. It solves the risk problem so that students can ease into college work without having to take on significant debt before they start, and actually ends up helping to solve the performance problem because those students that do move beyond this kind of early stage, low risk entry path, then they're much more likely to persist. So you see success rates go up over time. However, it does kind of take out some of the overall revenue that flows into higher education.
So what are you discovering are some of the barriers to entry in partnering with these traditional education leaders that from a distance look at you as, my guess at the highest level, don't entirely understand how it's going to help them. And also on some level look at what you're doing as potentially taking it away from a model that they really don't have a plan to execute around an alternative. So how do you engage to get interest? Because it seems to me, from the Forbes article, when I look online, and I think with the story that's being told more and more about competency-based education, credentialing, badges, there's a recognition that higher ed is going to continue to get more and more segmented in terms of serving the students. And my experience, though, is that higher ed leaders are insulated from what you're trying to do, and on some level, at the very basics, need to be educated so that they see you potentially as an ally versus a threat.
Yeah, so I guess the first is we've worked really hard over the past, so a little background. StraighterLine started in 2008 as a division of my first company, which was an online tutoring company called Smart Thinking, which is now owned by Pearson and is used by lots and lots of colleges. Became our own company in 2010, and from 2008 to 2012, we were very controversial. I mean, if you think where we are now is kind of new and alternative, 2008 was really radical. And but we've worked really hard to basically amass what we call good housekeeping seals of approval for our courses. So all the courses are AC credit recommended. They've been through the Distance Education Accrediting Commission's AQC project. We've had College Board look at them for AP worthiness. We have our articulation agreements. We're very upfront about the courses, very transparent with them. I speak at lots and lots of conferences. So we've gone, it's really all driven to create legitimacy for and legitimacy in the eyes of higher education for our courses, which they are. In fact, in many cases, are better than a lot of the online courses that individual colleges are offering for general education. So we've done a lot of that work, and that has started to pay off. It started to pay off because the market has started to move in this direction where more and more students are taking our courses, more and more in the marketplace have given us additional legitimacy. So the MOOC movement, sort of the MOOC moment in 2012, suddenly we weren't the only voice in the wilderness. Now there were 4 or 5 others, and it became clear that this wasn't going to go away. And the next big step that's happened recently is the Department of Education announcing the experimental site program called Equip, which is likely to create financial aid pathways to providers like us in concert with colleges, as well as other ways of thinking about quality, QAEs, as they're calling them, quality assurance entities. So this is gaining popularity, students gaining legitimacy, and then also gaining sort of regulatory approval as well as financial aid dollars. So you can see the trend growing. And what we do to colleges, we're very frank. I mean, we'll talk to a college and say, I understand your fear that students will take these courses and not take yours. And that's understandable, but we really haven't seen it yet. It has not happened that any of the colleges we've worked with have seen a mass migration of students that they're already enrolling to us. I wouldn't say it won't happen ever, but it certainly hasn't happened yet. Second, we want to work with you, and we believe in the college degree. We are structured as a pathway into the degree and to complete the degree. I don't think the degree is going away. A lot of rhetoric around it right now about the ROI of the degree and how it will be replaced by badges. Badges are going to be out there, but at least for the next 5 to 10 years, I would think they're going to be add-ons. They're going to complement.
Exactly. They're going to complement.
They answer just-in-time needs rather than overall.
Yeah, so we believe in the degree. We're here to help colleges. I understand the dilemma, but you can kind of pretend it's going to go away and not engage with these new providers like us. Or you can say, hey, this is going to come. How do we make the best of it and kind of ease into it? And so for us, the first step is an articulation agreement. It's free. It just says, yes, StraighterLine courses transfer to us, and here's how. And that's all it is. Second, if a college wants to go further, we have what we call our scholarship program, where willing colleges will offer additional tuition discounts to students that complete 4 or more of our courses. And the reason they do that is then we can list them as a scholarship partner. They get slightly better kind of a marketing category on our site. And then students get additional discounts, and colleges get students that are better than even the ones who are coming to us directly.
So tell me, when you think about your next big thing, it's like in many cases, I can imagine you're doing everything you can to keep up with the growing demand, and also making sure that the pitch is being told in a consistent way. I'm sure as you're growing and you have more colleges, it's not just you telling the story. But how would you characterize for our listeners your view of the next big thing that's going to play out in this world? Because you're not the only player in this, and I'm sure you keep tabs on how some of your competitors are dealing with this. What do you see as the next phase in this whole introduction of the for-profit institution that is both partnering but also working independently, that those who are working in more traditional colleges should be aware of?
So a couple ways to look at that. I would go two points. One is that I believe the last 16 years of online growth in higher ed has been driven by convenience, that students have chosen to take online courses. Doesn't really matter the price, but because the experience was so much more convenient than going and sitting in a classroom. And that's been great as accredited higher ed has had really little competition. So yes, there's competition among colleges, but between colleges and other business models, there hasn't really been much competition, because accreditation and the massive taxpayer subsidies that are tied to it, and by my estimate, that's probably a couple $100 billion a year when you add up all the different subsidy flows, which are many, have been very difficult for new providers to get in. That's changing. So now, in addition to convenience, students are looking at price, and that's the biggest change in the space. Is now not only are colleges competing with each other, but they're also competing with non-colleges, and it could be providers like us, and it's sort of a co-opetition sometimes, but it could also be providers where students are taking their certificates they otherwise would have enrolled in a college. So, a MOOC certificate that may be, would have been revenue that might have flowed into a certificate program at a college is now going to flow to a cheaper, shorter term, more convenient program online. So I think that's the big kind of financial challenge in terms, or rather economic challenge going forward, is that some of these profit streams that had been driven by the margins derived from online learning, whether colleges know it or not, they're not real good at understanding the unit economics for an online course versus a face-to-face course. Those are going to start to dry up. And then second, you're also starting to get regulator approval and regulator, in many cases, just acknowledgement and endorsement of these new providers, which will, again, change the dynamic of the space. It's no longer...
That's going to accelerate the whole conversation.
Exactly. You can no longer say, oh, we're accredited and therefore these are of low quality, because now they are de facto accredited also. Yeah. And those that weren't are being proved to be of pretty high quality also.
It's interesting, Pete, because so much of the dialogue and conversation that I find and my team finds itself in is helping with strategic conversations at a senior level. And in many cases, what we fall into is a conversation about looking at the last strategic plan, thinking about our mission, trying to figure out how we're going to stay consistent with that, but also address the cost and revenue problem. And while they're having these, in many cases, very insulated conversation, there's all this other sort of growing alternatives that I can tell you, even when you said, Burck, for the last 16 years, online education, I would say most people have had their head in the sand that this has been an industry of online that has been around even that long. It's been longer than that, but most institutions are not recognizing that this is potentially getting to a tipping point where they need to find out how they're not going to panic, but how they're going to say, how do we engage in this conversation, either to develop it ourselves or find ways to partner with what you're doing. I think part of it, Burck, to be perfectly frank, is trust. I think that there's a fundamental mistrust that a for-profit education model is not going to ultimately leave the traditional model, or the intention is to leave it in the stand. It's all about the it's not about the net, as a mission-based institution is thinking, but about profit. And driving it around profit. And because of that mistrust, this is why there is, head in the stand or not even want to look at this. And I think your biggest challenge is, how do you over time continue to build trust that you are really looking to have all ships win in this? And by the way, all ships are not going to win in this. There's no question that over time, the amount of degree-granting institutions, they cannot all survive. I think we all know that, and that's why there's a greater level of urgency. But the big shift has to happen if you're going to, be the kind of player that more and more traditional schools are looking to and working with, is that they trust you, that you are really sort of have the same mission they have, but you're doing it in a different way.
Yeah, and I think so. To sort of parse the for-profit versus nonprofit debate a little more intensely, the colleges, one, they have their own business models, and whether they know it or not, are seeking profits. They may distribute them differently instead of going to shareholders.
Different words, but it is about profit and loss.
This was John Sperling's great quote, right? That all colleges are for profit, whether they like it or not. Just most of them are run in the red.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And so that's first, and then second, colleges are very comfortable working with for profits. I mean, all the outsourced service providers, all the services they bring in, they do it all the time. And have no qualms with that. And so in many cases, the for-profit debate is really being carved around for-profit branded colleges as opposed to for-profit vendors or others. Correct. And so just to be clear, that's where the default line has fallen. And even there, yes, there are some colleges that have had sort of scandalous marketing tactics, but there are some nonprofits who've done the same. Exactly. And further, many of the most successful nonprofit online programs have copied almost whole cloth the for-profit marketing practices, not so much the extremes, but certainly the same business models. So there's a lot of gray area between for-profit and nonprofit in the space, and I think over time that's diminishing. So I'm not so worried about that. Yeah, but the point about trust is absolutely true. Is that we have to have people trust that our courses are of high quality, which is why we've done all these good housekeeping seals of approval. We work very closely with colleges. We're very transparent. I'll tell them exactly. Here's what's coming. You can choose to be part of it or not. I get it. I'm not going to go and fight, beat your faculty if they don't want to be part of this. But to your point earlier about strategic plans, I won't name colleges, but I was at a meeting with a large flagship institution that has a very strong brand. It's very proud of itself. And they went through their strategic goals. And they said, we want to lower the cost. We want to increase access. We want to improve student success and grow enrollments by about 50% over the next 4 or 5 years. And so they had listed all these goals. And I said, well, we kind of hit all of those. And here we are to help. And they're like, well, our faculty wouldn't like that. And
see,
so
that's exactly where I was going to go with this, is that everything you were saying before about the representation of a nonprofit, that we use different language in nonprofit to represent how we're going to break even. And now colleges and universities are attempting to use that to say we're not a corporation, but we do need to live above this line. Your dilemma is not with, I think, so much the administration, but the leaders really enrolling the academic side of the house into seeing this as a valid way to move through this. And I can tell you that in our work, there's enough challenge just even to get an institution to work at understanding their financial model as it relates to their academics. So how many kids do we have? How many students do we have enrolled in X programs? And to just understand that, forget about bringing it in an alternative model. So to me, as I listen to you tell the story, I think many leaders who are paying attention to how do we want to grow through this would say we should look at this. Their dilemma is, how do we engage our faculty? How do we engage the senior academic leadership in this conversation to sort of parse out this partnership conversation? That is always the rub.
Yeah, it's true, and there are no easy answers except it takes time, and that's what we have done. So we have spent, 8 years as a company, 6 years on our own, having those conversations to get to the point where we have, 100 colleges, or just about. Signed our 98th the other day, but 100 colleges with whom we have formal articulation agreements. Kind of a low-risk way to start, and then we've got others we do much more integrated things with, but it's all free and it's all at the discretion of the college, and we'll be very transparent about the courses, and they can make choices about what they will accept and what they won't accept. All we ask is that they be clear in advance, so we don't end up with students who kind of think they're getting credit when they're not.
What I love behind the content of the conversation here is I just have a sense of that you have not just a high level of energy, but that your level of optimism for how you're approaching this work. You seem to be in a good place in terms of what you're building.
I'm very happy where we are. So first, I love colleges. I love the people in colleges. It's unbelievable how dedicated they are and how motivated they are, and it's a fun market to be in. The structure of higher education, finance, pricing, how it works is really broken, and that's why we've chosen to start outside of higher ed. But we do have some solutions that can help, and that's fun. And being able to kind of do it every day, and we're making slow progress with our partner colleges, though fast progress with our enrollments is it's very exciting. So we're happy about where the world's going.
This is a fantastic conversation, Burck. Thank you so much. What I love so much about it, we just last week talked about the giant leaking sieve that exists between 2-year colleges and 4-year colleges, and this idea of creating stronger candidates for degrees, and this is one potential horizon. It shows that there is actually really great innovation going on in this space to help solve this problem. So I surely appreciate you joining us today to share your insights. And where would you point people to learn more about what you're doing?
Well, certainly go to our website, www.straighterline.com, or email me directly, bsmith@straighterline.com. And happy to tell you more about what we do. We have colleges with whom we work all over the country. Again, whether 2-year, 4-year, public, private, adult serving, non-adult serving, really all the above, and happy to have a conversation and let the college decide if it's something they want to participate with or not.
This is fantastic, Burck. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. Really, really fantastic presentation and conversation. I mean, I know that people listening to this are gonna want to dig further into this conversation and be thinking about this. So this was really helpful.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for having me anytime.
Thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to this show. We surely appreciate it. Again, subscribe for free in iTunes or your podcatcher of choice. You can learn more about us at TibleLink.com, and we'll put notes and links in the show notes. So if you're listening on a mobile device, just scroll down. You should see links to StraighterLine right there in your show notes, in the palm of your hand. There's such power there. On behalf of Burck Smith and StraighterLine, on behalf of Howard Tibble, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week on Navigating Change, the podcast from Tibble Inc.